one of the Indiana Fever's newest players, one of 3 enforcers the Indiana Fever signed this year to protect Caitlin Clark, just looked straight into the camera and said, "WNBA Bullies beware." And she wasn't joking. During Clark's rookie season, she absorbed 17% of every flagrant foul called across the entire WNBA. Think about that number for a second, because that's not bad luck or coincidence. That's targeting. Then her sophomore year, injuries knocked her out for stretches while the league said nothing. So the Indiana Fever front office finally decided enough was enough. And what they built this offseason is going to make those same WNBA bullies very uncomfortable in 2026, because the Indiana Fever now have 3 enforcers: Sophie Cunningham, Myisha Hines-Allen, and Tyasha Harris. Do you think Caitlin Clark will be more protected in the 2026 season? Let me know down in the comments below.
We need more we need a goon squad, okay? We already know a hit was sent out on Caitlin Clark. She was the most targeted player in the WNBA for the last 2 years. It's very, very obvious.
What are the odds that one player out of every single person on every WNBA roster just happens to eat 17% of all the flagrant fouls called in an entire season? Not a power forward who bangs in the paint every night, not a veteran who's built a reputation for playing through contact, but a rookie guard in her first year. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. So let's talk about what a flagrant foul actually is, because it's not just a hard foul. Any physical game is going to produce hard fouls. That's basketball. A flagrant foul is what officials call when the contact crosses a line, when a referee watches a play and decides the foul was excessive or unnecessary, meaning it didn't need to happen the way it happened. So when Clark collected them at 17% of the league's total, that told you something very specific about the choices veterans were making when they played her.
Caitlin Clark getting basically wrecked. This is one of the worst decisions that I have ever seen any league engage in. Caitlin Clark is the biggest draw for a team sport in my life relative to the audience that would be fans of the sport without her. Bigger than Michael Jordan was for the NBA, bigger than any NFL star has ever been. All of those sports were very popular before those athletes got there. Caitlin Clark is the golden goose. Every game she is dropping golden eggs.
And the WNBA did nothing. No suspensions got handed down, no fines got announced publicly, no press conference where the league said they were watching the situation. The conversation around it got framed as rookies needing to earn their stripes, which is really just a polite way of saying the targeting was fine and everyone should move on. Picture this. It's June 2025. Clark's playing against the Connecticut Sun, and JC Sheldon pokes her directly in the eye.
Here we go. They're trailing by 10. Keep an eye on her and JC Sheldon. Clark trying to back her down.
Clark is okay.
Sheldon, that was Clark, hitting her in the face. Clark is upset about that. Then everybody's upset about that. Marina Mabry comes in. She decks Clark, tempers flaring on both sides.
An eye poke doesn't happen by accident in a basketball game. Your hand doesn't accidentally travel upward into another player's face during normal defensive contact. Clark's standing there, and Sheldon's hand goes into her eye, and then the whole situation blows up from there because Marina Mabry comes in and shoves Clark too. One incident, 2 separate players, and Clark's the one absorbing all of it. The Mabry shove is different in character from the Sheldon poke, because a shove like that isn't something that happens during a play. That's something you do when you want the other person to feel it and think about it later. That's a message, not a basketball play.
They are trying to strangle the golden goose to death. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Everyone in the league seems to hate the fact that Caitlin Clark is making the league relevant.
Clark drew that kind of attention partly because she became the most watched player in WNBA history almost immediately. So every veteran on every team had something to prove when she walked on the floor, and some of them decided to prove it physically instead of just competing. The physical wear from her rookie season didn't reset when 2025 started. It compounded, and the injury absences in her sophomore year connect directly back to what her body absorbed in year 1.
That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
The Fever's response through both seasons was mostly reactive, plugging in players who could score but couldn't do much when things got rough around Clark. And that gap in roster construction became impossible to ignore by the time Year 2 ended. Most people who follow the Fever know Cunningham as the player who hit 43.2% from 3 over a stretch in 2025, and that shooting ability is real and it matters. But it's not why the Fever made re-signing her a priority before they even looked at other options. Let's talk about what Cunningham actually brings, because the shooting is almost secondary to everything else she puts on the floor.
Definitely the W, especially if Sophie Cunningham is going to continue to fight people for messing with Caitlin Clark, because it feels like Caitlin Clark is going to get treated in a certain way in this league for a long time. She's not a rookie anymore, okay? She's already proved herself. She's won. And then there were some, ladies last night that were trying to go a little physical.
Cunningham spent years with the Phoenix Mercury building a reputation as someone you don't take cheap shots around, because she'll step directly into your space and make things very uncomfortable very fast. That's a specific kind of player value that never shows up in a box score, and most front offices don't fully appreciate it until they watch their star player get poked in the eye and shoved around while the bench just watches.
She's like an enforcer.
Yeah, it feels like she was potentially brought in like a James Johnson type role for Tyrese Halliburton. And it's like, thank God. I think this is a good play, not a bad play.
You always need some, I don't know if they still call them, you need some goons on your team, for sure. Especially when you have a star like that. Yeah, when you have the golden goose, just like MJ was, when you had his teammates who would kind of protect him at times, when the dirtbag Detroit Pistons had those MJ rules. So this is what the Grace is going to go through. Candace Parker kind of went through this. She came in the league. But yeah, Caitlin Clark's going to continue to deal with it. And, she's a dog.
Here's where it gets interesting. Cunningham earned a Taekwondo black belt when she was 6 years old, and she's kept that training going ever since. So when she gets in someone's face on a basketball court, it's not just competitive instinct or adrenaline. She's someone who has spent basically her entire life learning how to control a physical confrontation without losing her composure. Go back to the Sheldon eye poke. The moment it happened, Cunningham was already moving, already getting in between Clark and the situation, already making it clear to everyone on that court that there were going to be consequences for that kind of play. The Fever watched that response and understood exactly what she'd bring to a roster built around keeping Clark healthy and on the floor.
Sophie commits a hard foul on JC Sheldon. Again, as JC Sheldon is going up for a layup, Sophie bear hugs her and takes her to the ground. What I will say is Sophie did not grab her and throw her to the ground. She didn't body slam her. She didn't do anything, in my personal opinion. Maybe I'm biased here, but I'm gonna give you guys my straight up honest opinion on this.
The Mabry body check got the same treatment. Cunningham didn't wait to see how the refs would call it or hang back to see what the coaches wanted. She got loud, she got physical with her positioning, and she made sure Mabry knew the play didn't go unnoticed. The rest of the Fever bench reacted too, but not with the same immediacy, and that gap between her response and everyone else's is precisely the gap the front office spent the whole offseason trying to close. And she can actually play basketball on top of all that, right? She guards multiple positions, she hits threes when Clark draws the double team, and she gives Kelsey Mitchell a real running mate on the perimeter who doesn't need the ball in her hands to stretch a defense. The Tres Leches nickname for Cunningham, Clark, and Lexi Hull isn't just a fun label. It describes 3 players who all shoot well enough that you genuinely can't sag off any of them. And Cunningham's return locks that floor spacing in for 2026.
Sophie Cunningham's return to Indiana provides the Fever a key boost at guard depth, bringing back one of the league's premier shooters and instant momentum swingers in the WNBA. Due to injuries, Cunningham was never able to fully display what she was capable of in year 1 in Indiana. 2 May ankle injuries kept her from getting off to the start she wanted. And then, quite simply, she morphed into perhaps the league's best shooter over more than a month's time.
She signed a 1-year deal, not the multi-year contract she'd publicly talked about wanting, which means she's playing 2026 with her next contract riding on every single game. When the Fever signed Myisha Hines-Allen, most of the conversation zeroed in on her 2019 championship ring with the Washington Mystics and her all-WNBA resume, which are real credentials, but the front office wasn't assembling a highlight reel. They were filling a front court that spent 2 full seasons getting physically outmuscled by forwards who figured Indiana wouldn't push back.
Quite a bit of foul trouble in this half. To put it into perspective, Mabry has 3, Sanaya Rivers has 3 fouls, Bria Hartley has 3 fouls.
That's your wing depth.
Hines-Allen is 6'2" and built for contact. She crashes boards in traffic, guards bigger players without retreating, and plays the kind of physical forward game that the Fever desperately needed next to Aliyah Boston, who's good but can't carry that physical burden alone against elite front courts every single night. Ask around the league about Hines-Allen and you'll hear the same thing repeatedly. She's a dog, she instills fear, and if you needed one player as a bodyguard, half the league would vote for her without hesitating. Here's where it gets spicy, because Hines-Allen and Cunningham have actually gone at it on the court before, and nobody backed down.
Sophie Cunningham tried to fight Myisha Hines-Allen. She tried to fight Myisha Hines-Allen. You do not, there are not that many people. You can see everyone else is trying to get as far away from this situation as possible. Everyone else. So she hits a 3. Myisha Hines-Allen fouls her and then tries to step over. And then Sophie Cunningham grabs her leg. Nobody's going near Myisha Hines-Allen, but no, Sophie Cunningham will start the fight. The refs are trying to break it up. None of the Mercury players are going to go near Myisha Hines-Allen. They're scared. She's scared of bejesus out of them. Myisha Hines-Allen is one of the toughest players in this league. Sophie Cunningham going head to head straight with her.
Picture 2 players who genuinely don't flinch when things get physical, going directly at each other, and neither one of them blinking. That's the exchange that happened, and the Fever watched it and decided they wanted both of those players wearing the same uniform, because that competitive intensity doesn't disappear when they become teammates. It just gets redirected toward protecting Clark instead of competing against each other. The 2019 Mystics aren't just a ring worth mentioning and moving on from. That Washington team played physical, they protected the paint aggressively, and Hines-Allen operated in a front court that made opponents earn every single look near the basket. She already knows what a championship roster feels like from the inside, and she knows the difference between a team that talks about competing and one that actually does it.
Hines-Allen shaking her head like, it's hard to stop me when I turn that corner going to the basket.
Hines-Allen, yes! Hines-Allen counts the bucket and the foul. To the second side for the sweet, smooth reversal. Myisha Hines-Allen coming right into your living room.
Here's Hines-Allen. Count the basket! So Myisha's got a mismatch, takes advantage of it, count it!
Her scoring won't put up big numbers on the stat sheet, and that's fine, because that's not the job. She finishes at the rim when Clark or Mitchell drives and kicks. She sets screens that actually spring people loose instead of just going through the motions. And she guards the opposing 4 without the coaching staff needing to hide her on defense. Think about what the Fever's front court looked like during the stretches of 2025 when Boston was essentially alone out there. Opposing forwards grabbed second chance points freely, drives collapsed on Clark in traffic with nobody to bail her out, and the paint belonged to whoever wanted it. Hines-Allen doesn't solve every size question the Fever still have against the biggest front courts in a deep playoff run, but she directly addresses the problem of teams treating Indiana's paint like open territory. She signed with Indiana because she wants another ring. Her motivation and her physicality are aimed at exactly the same target, and she had something very specific to say about it.
Is an excellent move for the Indiana Fever. She's a role player. She knows how to fit into her role. She's fine starting. She can come off the bench. Whatever you need, Myisha Hines-Allen will be able to provide it. She's not a black hole like Natasha Howard.
2 enforcers, 1 forward, and 1 guard is already a different roster than the one that watched Clark get shoved around for 2 seasons. But the Fever had one more gap to fill, and it's one that didn't make as many headlines. Clark spent most of 2025 grinding through 35-minute nights because there was genuinely nobody behind her who could run the offense without the whole thing falling apart. And that kind of workload catches up with a player eventually. Tyasha Harris fixes that specific problem, and she does it without a learning curve because she already played under Stephanie White in Connecticut. She knows how this coaching staff thinks, what they want from a backup guard, and how to operate in a system built around a primary ball handler. Most backup point guards coming into a new situation need half a season just to get comfortable with the playbook. And Harris skips all of that.
Cool, calm, and collected was a person. It would be Ty Harris.
Harris spots it. He's playing defense, getting her hands on the ball. She's looking for someone. Takes it herself for three. Harris at the horn.
Her shooting numbers when healthy force defenses to actually respect her off the ball, which matters more on this roster than it would anywhere else. Because Clark pulls so much defensive attention that anyone standing open in the backcourt gets real looks, and Harris can knock those down instead of just occupying space. She's also quick on defense, pressures the ball, and doesn't quietly disappear on that end the way a lot of backup guards do when they're just trying to stay on the floor and not make mistakes. Now, the injury history is worth being honest about. Harris has missed time before, and the Fever can't run a serious playoff push with their backup point guard unavailable for stretches. That's a real risk sitting right alongside the upside, and the front office signed her knowing it. But the counter-argument is pretty straightforward. Clark's 2025 workload wasn't sustainable. She carried the ball-handling burden for too many minutes across too many games. And even shaving 10 minutes a night off that load changes the math on her availability once the playoffs start.
Hey Fever fans, Ty Harris here. Excited to stay home and play this season and see everybody's face. Go Fever!
Harris also grew up in Indiana. And while that's a smaller detail compared to everything else, players with a personal connection to the market tend to lock into the culture faster than someone who just signed for the money and the situation. So put the whole roster together now. Clark runs the offense, Mitchell and Cunningham space the floor and defend, Hull provides continuity and defensive discipline, Boston and Hines-Allen own the front court physically, Billings brings length and screening, and Harris gives Clark actual rest without the second unit turning into a disaster. That's a team with physical depth across every position, a backup who already knows the system, and 3 players whose entire professional reputation rests on not backing down from anyone. Hines-Allen had something very specific to say about all of it. Myisha Hines-Allen looked straight into a camera after signing with Indiana and said, "Bullies beware," and she wasn't performing for a clip or trying to go viral. She described a job she'd already accepted, and the Fever front office had already built the roster around exactly that mentality before the quote ever went public. That's not a coincidence. That's 2 things moving in the same direction at the same time.
But sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. And every good player, by the way, every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer type players.
Let's talk about what the 2026 Fever actually are, because this isn't a team that's going to absorb cheap shots and wait for the league to respond. They've got a Taekwondo black belt on the wing in Cunningham, a former champion in the front court who already traded blows with that same wing when they wore different uniforms, a backup point guard who already knows the playbook, and a coaching staff that spent 2 full years watching Clark get targeted and finally answered it by changing who's on the floor around her. That's a roster built with a specific problem in mind, and the problem wasn't shooting efficiency. Are you ready for the honest championship picture? The Fever are contenders, not favorites. There are still real questions about whether Hines-Allen and Billings together give Indiana enough size to match up with the biggest front courts they'd run into during a deep playoff run, and the league isn't clearing a path for anyone. New York, Las Vegas, Chicago, none of them are going to make it easy, and playoff basketball against elite competition exposes every roster gap that the regular season lets you hide.
Last time they went to the finals was 2015. Okay, you guys made the semis of the East last season. You had to watch from the sidelines.
Yeah, it was tough.
Expectations, goals of this season, what you got for me?
I mean, we were trying to win it all last year, and that's certainly what we're trying to do this year. You know, it's a very unique situation. I think there's over 100 players in the league that are free agents. So we really only know about 5 people or 3 people that are going to be on our team next year, but I feel like we have a great core, you know.
But the ceiling on this team is higher than it's ever been, because the 2024 and 2025 versions of Indiana both ran into the same 2 walls. Not physical enough and not deep enough. And both of those walls got torn down this offseason with players who carry championship experience and genuinely don't care about making friends with opponents. That's a different team than the one that watched Clark eat flagrant fouls while the league shrugged. If Clark stays healthy and gets actual rest from Harris behind her, If the Hines-Allen and Boston frontcourt holds together against playoff-level forwards, and if Cunningham keeps shooting 43% from three while making life miserable for anyone who wants to get physical with Clark, Indiana can go deep in 2026 in a way they couldn't before. Those are real conditions, not guarantees, but all three of them are more likely now than they were 12 months ago. Imagine the Bullies Beware quote sitting next to the specific moments it's responding to. Sheldon's hand going into Clark's eye, Mabry's body check landing while the bench stood around. The rookie season stat sheet showing 17% of the league's flagrant fouls absorbed by one player. The missed games in 2025 that connected directly back to the physical wear of year one. Hines-Allen knew exactly what she was signing up for, and she said what she said anyway, publicly, on camera, before she'd played a single minute in a Fever uniform.
We're looking forward to watching it for sure. You guys saw that May 9th against the Dallas Wings. That'll be the first time you see Caitlin back in her Indiana Fever jersey, but they're getting ready for training camp. That starts April 19th for her. But guess what? She's not really going to go anywhere. Caitlin's going to hang around a little bit.
Those days are over now. Not because the WNBA tightened its officiating, not because the veterans who targeted Clark reconsidered their approach, but because Indiana stopped waiting for the league to fix it, and fixed it themselves. They put Cunningham back on the wing, added Hines-Allen to the front court, brought in Harris to keep Clark fresh, and built a wall in front of their franchise player using people who've already proven they don't move when things get uncomfortable. The Fever play in front of the best fans in the league. Hines-Allen said that too. And in 2026, those fans are going to watch a very different team take the floor. Do you think Caitlin Clark will be more protected in the 2026 season? Let me know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.